Welcome to the channel about news from around the world. While you subscribe and like it, we're going to start.
The future now stands before a stone. On it is written, if you go to the right, there will be new trade rules, a multipolar world, new world currencies, and everything will more or less calm down. And the second inscription, if you go left, everything will be dead. And the point here, of course, is not the military operation in Ukraine or NATO's participation in it. The global war will be not on land, but at sea. Unfortunately, everything is being prepared for it. Have you ever played naval combat? And global naval combat? Worldwide and destructive. Do you remember? Britain was called the ruler of the seas. Not because it had the strongest military navy, but also because it guarded the merchant navy. The collapse of the British Empire and the emergence of the US made it the states that ruled the seas. The concern about the sea lanes of the US and Britain is absolutely an old fix-it idea. The fact is that any transport by sea will always be cheaper than transport by land. And accordingly, control of sea lanes is control of maritime trade worldwide. So if a country loses that control, it loses out in competition. That is why, if we look closely at a map of the world's oceans, we find that the US fleet is in all the world's oceans except one, the Arctic Ocean. The US has long wanted to enter the Arctic Ocean, squeezing Russia, but they may not have time. Now the main thing for them is not to miss the Taiwan Strait. Why is it so important to the US? It seems that Europe is no longer of interest to the US. Including as a springboard for NATO. NATO will exist, but only rather as a second-class club of European political leaders. If China is the main opponent of the US in the long term, and the main competitor in the struggle for world leadership, Japan and South Korea gradually occupy a key position among the US partners. Apparently Japan and South Korea, simply by virtue of the fact that against the background of industrialized Europe, maintained and increased their technological power. And by now, nuclear weapons aside, both Japan and South Korea are more serious military, especially military industrial, powers than, for example, Great Britain, France and Germany. Both of these countries are able to produce a wide range of advanced weapons on their own, and produce them often more massively. In other words, the Taiwan Strait is not only a route for trade, but also a military link between Asian partners and the US. It would seem that let them fight there and that's it, but that's not the case. With the dollar in trouble as the world currency, at a time when the BRICS are about to create their own world currency, only not paper but backed by gold, the loss of the Taiwan Strait will be a serious blow, cutting the US off from its Asian partners. The unipolar American world is rapidly disintegrating. There's a pretty big struggle going on for control of the trade routes. And whoever controls them will actually set the tone of world trade. And it's clear that if the US loses or the UK loses, it's a very strong blow to their economy. And they will use various beautiful slogans to the end, covering themselves with various beautiful slogans, talking about concerns and defense of free trade, to introduce warships. And, in fact, in all the narrow places, in all the straits, be sure to keep their surface and submarine fleet. This is why the US is trying to provide Taiwan with weapons. That is why US policymakers are so anxiously wary of China's growing navy. The battle for Taiwan will not pass Russia by. It's enough to see how many Chinese exercises Russian ships have taken part in. Because the US will not act alone here either. The main military base will be Japan with its powerful navy. The Japanese navy is already one of the strongest in the region. If we ignore the US fleet, only the Chinese fleet is stronger than the Japanese fleet, but not in everything. But the most dangerous thing is not what ships, aircraft carriers, missiles, etc. will be used. Simply no one in the world knows what modern naval combat is. That is why for us the history with the future battles around Taiwan no longer seems so distant and uninteresting. If World War III is to begin, it will be in the Taiwan Strait. The third and absolutely the last.
Thank you for watching. If you're interested, subscribe and leave a comment.